I wanted to record this for you because we had two or three students that weren't around when we went over this. So here's your new Writeable. This, you guys have all week to work on it. It is due Saturday night. So when is Saturday? Saturday is the, let me double check here on my calendar. Saturday looks like it's going to be the 18th. So due by 11:59 p.m. on the 18th, this coming Saturday. So let's take a look at it. So I want you guys to write a narrative. What is and actually, it's not just a narrative, it's called a historical fiction narrative. And historical fictions, they can be set, or they are set in a real place at a real time, in the sense that it's something that actually took place, in history. So the 30 Years' War, back in the 1700s. If you could make up some characters, maybe they were knights or squires or whatever, and you could write about their experiences, during the 30 Years' War, or some dukes, or some lords, or maybe some servants. I mean, whatever the setting is would be entirely up to you. But some of the events that take place, would actually have taken place, but you've just made up some characters in that. And the character could be you. So anyways, but this setting is going to be during World War II, in the 1940s. And so it's about the code talkers, which were Navajo Indians. And the Navajos were used during World War II, and you'll read this on your own. And the code was never broken. Their language was never understood by the Axis, would be the Germans and the Japanese primarily, and the Italians earlier on in the war. And so there could be communication between different units in the Army, Navy, Air Force, and they would use the code talkers. And so you'll read about them. And then they also talked about the Ghost Army, and those were units that had, they had blow-up tanks and blow-up airplanes, and they had these giant speakers, and they could fool the enemy units into thinking that maybe there was a larger force nearby. And so you could read about them also. Now, I want you to understand this essay is worth 60 points. Normally they've been, I think the first couple were 20 and 30, and then I upped the points to 50. This one's worth 60, and I'll explain why here in just a moment. But there's two parts to this. The first part is, it says analyze and plan. And so you'll look at this, and depending on where you want your main character, or maybe you'll have a couple main characters to be, this information that you are going to fill this out. This is part of your grade. The code talkers, you can see this first column right here. Who were they, and who was the Ghost Army? And then what did they do? What did the code talkers do? And you just need to, in a sentence or two at the most, to answer these questions. When did they do their work? Why was their mission important? What other interesting details or facts about these units are there? And then it says plan your historical fiction beginning, because this is the beginning of a story that you're writing. And it says brainstorm possible characters and situations to write about based on the topic of the article. Okay, that's what I'm reading right here. And then write a few different options below. And then so they give you some examples here. You can include a Navajo code talker developing a code, or maybe a member of the Ghost Army trying to fake out the Germans. This took place in Europe. Or the wife or the child of a code talker. And then the next step, it says highlight the most interesting character from your brainstormed list above and flesh out more details. So as you think about your main character, your fictional character, and again, it could be you. You could pick somebody in class and put them in this situation. So what is your character doing? Describe the situation. What is your character thinking and feeling? List some of these thoughts and feelings. Who is your character interacting with? Identify other characters. Where is your character? Describe the setting. What happens when your story begins? What is the main conflict? How does it end? Tell about the story sequence. Now, all this pre-write information, I just want to say this. Just because you fill out these boxes and answer all these questions, it doesn't mean you have to use it. But it is there to kind of help you get the juices flowing as you start writing this narrative. Then it says, the next step, it says, now choose your narrator point of view. You can use the first person point of view, which your main character is the narrator. So in other words, they're telling the story. Or you could use a third person point of view in which the narrator is someone other than the main character. And so they describe the 2 points of views, and you guys are probably familiar with those. And then you can, let me know which point of view you want to use. Then it says, engage and orient your readers. How will you start your story so readers will be curious to read more? Examples include a piece of dialogue, an interesting description, or a piece of action, or maybe a detailed description of the setting. And then what background details do your readers need to know at the beginning of your story so they understand the setting? And a lot of this information that I just went over, if not really, well, some of it, it's going to be out of your own mind. But since it's a historical fiction, you're going to draw the real information, the facts, from this passage here. All right. So that's the first part I'm going to grade, that I'm going to look at. And you'll see 2 tabs here: analyze and plan, which is what I just talked about, and then write. And I've mentioned before, if you guys wanted to write this in Google Docs, you're certainly welcome to. Or if you wanted to compose it right in here in the Writeable, that's fine also. It's entirely up to you guys. And I haven't said how many paragraphs. I mean, I would 3 or 4 at least, because you're not doing the entire story. It's really it's sort of the beginning of a story that you would write. And I wanted to show you a couple more things really quick. So if I was to review what you guys do for all the basic information here that I first talked about in the first 5 minutes, there's 2 scores. The writer demonstrates his or her understanding of the text. And so 1, 2, 3, or 4 stars. The writer plans the narrator and characters before the writing. And again, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 4 stars. Each one of these is worth 10 points. And so this should be filled out completely. And then you'll be graded accordingly. So that's 20 points right there. The actual essay, or at least the beginning of your essay, I should say, is worth 40 points. That's why the entire essay is worth 60. So the beginning of the story grabs my attention and leaves me wanting to read more. So your first paragraph should really be a grabber. Number 2, the writer introduces the narrator and establishes a point of view. Is it first-person point of view or third-person point of view? That should be very clear. Number 3, the introduction establishes the situation with the background information and the characters in the setting. So there could be, certainly a couple of paragraphs about that, maybe more. And finally, the characters are compelling and believable. So each one of those categories are also worth 10 points. So 2 for the analyzing and plan, and then 4 areas for the writing, the actual essay part. So again, this is due by this Saturday by midnight. And I went over this in class with everybody, but I wanted to record this, and because there was how many? There was 1, 2, I think 3 students absent today. So, okay, that's it, and I'll stop this recording.